So here's a scene from Aliens, and they've gone into the colony base that's on the planet where we know from the first film that the aliens have existed. And they've already seen facehuggers in jars. So Ripley is already very nervous. And they've gone in, the whole base seems to be deserted. There's evidence of violence, evidence of weapons being used, but there's no people. We've been in a kind of anxious, suspenseful state. We've come in, we've been very subjective, we've searched the place, we keep expecting something to jump out, keep expecting something to jump out, it doesn't. So now we're going to wind things a little tighter. And this is a long game. We've been building and building and building for a long time here. So how do we signal to the audience that there's an escalation or there's a swerve, something new is happening? Our character gets a signal. They've got these trackers. They've been walking around the base with these trackers. Nothing's shown up. All of a sudden, there's movement. And so
I think we got something here.
He says, we got something. Something's moving. Where is it?
Behind us.
One of us?
Hey, Pawn, where are your people?
You're 20 minutes into a long game, kind of suspenseful sequence at this point. And now it's going to come to a head.
That's a negative. We're all in operations.
Talk to me, Frosty. Let's keep moving, baby.
He moves forward with his gun, which is basically just with a Steadicam on. But I made the assumption at the time, and this was in 1985, that a Steadicam was a tool that we used behind the scenes, but it wasn't well known. So we just basically took a Steadicam and dressed it up with a big machine gun sitting on it. And it was hell to operate because it was really heavy. But the two actors that had to carry it did a great job. Okay, so we're in a tracking shot. The lighting is very low key. We've got some sense of source lighting here. We've got source lighting coming from their lights. So it feels very, very dim and dark and suspenseful. These are just basic ways of selling that you're in sort of the haunted house, the spooky environment, as opposed to the brightly lit kind of sterile lab that it could have been. I mean, it's a lab, it's a medical space, could have been brightly lit, but it isn't. So the power's failing. There's the suggestion that violence has happened and could happen again in a split second. Now, we don't know how jumpy Ripley is, so I did a little thing here where he brushes the microscope arm or whatever it is, and there was this carefully balanced flask sitting here. And Sigourney jumps, and it puts you subjectively in her character for a moment. It's not meant to make the audience jump, because they see it in progress. It's meant to give you, it's different than a jump scare. In a jump scare, the audience doesn't know what's going to happen next, and something moves very quickly, and there might be a music sting, and we jump. This case, this is not us jumping, this is her jumping. And it's to externalize her mental state, which is hair trigger. She's trying to process rationally. She's trying to be the rational person that she imagines herself to be, but her heart's pounding because she's the only one there that's encountered this species before. So she's more keyed up than everybody else is. They should be more scared than they are. They're just treating it as professional soldiers, military guys doing what they do. So he's looking at the screen. He says it's straight in front of us, so we're going to move. We're going to go in that direction because, of course, that's what you do in a horror movie. You're going to go toward the danger because of their hubris. So thematically, that was a theme throughout the film. These guys thought they were undefeatable. They had the big guns. They were against a non-intelligent species that had no weaponry whatsoever. What's to worry about? And it was always in my mind, writing this, kind of a metaphor for the Vietnam War, where the big stomping superpower was going to go into the little backward developing country where all they had was a bunch of, hand-me-down AK-47s, and they were running through the jungle in bare feet. And we were going to go in with our helicopters and our missiles and our defoliants and our B-52s, and we were going to bomb them into the Stone Age, and we were going to win in 6 months. Cut to 10 years later, and the U.S. is pulling out of Vietnam with its tail between its legs. And that was 10 years before this movie was made. The fall of Saigon was in 1975. So it was recent history. It was something that I was paying attention to, and it was resonating into a science fiction film that took place on another planet. We never specifically say that these guys are Americans. In fact, you can imagine that they are, or do we? Wait a minute, does he have an, oh, sorry, I take it back. There are a few extra stars in the number of states, because presumably America is a colonial superpower in this imagined future. But we never say it in dialogue. They're just the colonial Marines. And at the time, I didn't really know any Marines personally. I didn't know their ethos. Later on in my life, my younger brother would join the Marines, serve for 6 years, and I learned a whole new appreciation and respect for the U.S. Marine Corps, and I actually wouldn't make this movie this way now because of what I know about the U.S. Marines. But every filmmaker evolves. They learn, they observe life, and sometimes their opinions on things change. So this is all classic suspense. So we have the moment where you're at the door, the corner, the pieing of the room, as they say in a police show or something like that, where you sweep the space. Now we've just gone into a subjective shot. We don't quite know why we're in a subjective shot, but the camera's moving. Why is the camera moving? Is it something hiding? Is this foreground object is meant to suggest that there's a place to conceal, and we're looking out from behind concealment? It's totally subconscious. It's not meant to be a conscious statement. It's a subconscious statement. The camera just came to life. So these guys are moving forward. The sound design, the chirp of the tracker, it's getting louder and it's getting faster. It's an increasing tension through sound design. We want to milk out that state. We want the audience to be on the edge of their seat. So here in the graphic, is it moving toward us or are we moving toward it? But again, the underpinning to this scene is the presumption going in that this is an alien. And that presumption is fed at least, I would say, 50% by our knowledge of the prior film. So this is a sequel intentionally resonating with the film that came before it, intentionally, and I think successfully. Not overly so, but definitely that's a factor. So now we've just gone subjective again. We're handheld from behind the Marine, Hicks, moving up. So we're with them. We're moving with them. Whether we're on their journey for just for that moment, which is the point of the shot, to be there and to see that there's nothing ahead of them. They can't see anything ahead of them. But here's this foreground thing, this shadowy foreground thing. Again, they're not looking at it. The camera's moving ever so slightly. And then something shadowy breaks across the frame. Sudden lunge and a sudden music sting. Classic music sting. And Drake, this was a tough one from an editorial standpoint. Drake, our smart gun operator, opens fire. But Hicks, with lightning quick reflexes, deflects his weapon. It's a little hard to see, and if I'd had a little more money, or maybe I'd seen the dailies, you know, if I was looking at a monitor, I'd say, I don't see his gun. I don't see Hicks hit Drake. I probably would have gone again. You know, but this was in the day of film, so you waited the next day, and then there was no time to go back. But the audience still gets it, because 2 shots later, you see Hicks having blocked Drake's gun. You're seeing the questions being answered after the fact, but that's okay. That's okay. So there's an interim shot of the rounds hitting the wall, and we see the destructive power of the smart gun, and then we see that Hicks has deflected his weapon. And Drake's pissed off about it, because he would have made the shot if Hicks hadn't done that. But Hicks has clearly seen something to stop him from shooting. And then he does something strange.
Ripley.
He calls to Ripley. So now you know it's not an alien, but what is it? So now you've just toggled out of suspense mode. The suspense has been alleviated. It's now dropped to 0. Now you're into curiosity. It's been replaced by curiosity. Different emotion, different physiological response. Now you're leaning forward. What is it that Hicks has seen? We're not telling you. We saw something, but we don't know what it is. And we're not going to answer the question right away. Now she's seeing something. And we can tell by her expression that it's interesting, but we don't know what it is. Holy shit. Now, To me, this is the right order of information. You see the character see something, and it's clearly there in her face. It's unmistakable. I'm looking, and I see something. Sigourney was not looking at Carrie Henn, who played Newt. She was probably looking at a dot on the wall and creating that in her mind. If she had felt that she needed Carrie to be there, we might have had Carrie there. I don't remember, but it depends on the individual actor, but she might have been reacting to nothing. And this is what she sees. And so now we have the reveal. We've just introduced a character. Now, as the film was written, we've already met her. And there was a whole sort of 8-minute sequence with her when she was the, pretty, not the unkempt little savage animal. My intention there was to do a contrast, to see her before and after. As the film was finally cut and released, we took out all of reel 2 and basically threw it in the trash. And so we didn't see Newt. This is now her introduction shot. So this was an unplanned introduction that works very well. But I think it's critical to understand that every shot is always doing something. The audience is learning. And once the audience jumps hip to the fact that the film is teaching you things you need to know further on in the film, you'll continue to pay attention. You start to play the game.